Hey everybody, my name's Steve Gerardo and I am a road rider with Shepherd Church out in Porter Ranch. We do a ride every Saturday and on occasion we ride throughout the week. I've been a road bike rider for I think over 12 years now. It's kind of crazy because I remember when I just started and somehow the years have passed and I've been on so many amazing adventures. And today I just want to show you guys a few tips on how to maintain your bike or at least be aware of some of the maintenance. And especially I'd like to show you guys how to change a flat. One of the greatest things that I've been able to do because of all the flats I've gotten over the years is be kind of the official flat tire helper slash changer for my group and basically any other group that I've ever ridden with. I've always just been, quick to help change that tire while we're on the road. And believe it or not, without rushing, with just being efficient, we can actually have a flat anywhere, anywhere in the mountains, in the desert, in the city, and basically just make the right decisions, be efficient, change that flat and be back on the road. I'm not even exaggerating, in like 7 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes. So I know in some groups a flat can really hinder the ride, but if you just become efficient, which is what I'm going to try to show you guys, you can have the flat, not even worry about it, get it changed, and get back on the road. But before we even get into that, I just wanted to point out my bike for a second and just tell you guys a few things that I believe you should do, maybe even before a ride, during a ride, and even after a ride. I'll just try to go over a few things that I think are important. Number one, I think most important are your tires. I'm not necessarily going to tell you which tires that you have to use. I do ride Continentals. I think they are the better tire. And now it seems like Continental is either offering better discounts to bike shops because Continentals used to be really, really expensive. And I think if you do check online, you will see that they're still expensive. But if you go to some of the bigger bike outlets, you can see that they're bringing down the sale price, and that makes it much more affordable for everybody to just have better tires. That's really all you want, is just a better tire, which means that rubber compound that they use and maybe the layer under it is going to give you some more protection for some city riding and even in the mountains. I think no matter where you ride, you're always going to deal with gashes, with cracks, with crevices, with glass, with debris on the street. And the better tire you have, the safer you are to prevent blowouts, slow leaks, and just flats overall. But anyways, aside from the tire, your job as a bike rider, no matter what bike you ride, is to at least inspect your tires. Just give your tires a little bit of love, either before every ride or after every ride. Just take a quick glance. You might want to carry a handy dandy rag, and you might want to either clean your tire and just take a quick look at your tires regularly. All you got to do is take a glance, and if you see anything that looks dangerous, like a giant gash that basically allows for something to really penetrate and give you a blowout on the road, you want to do something about it. You want to determine whether the tire needs to be changed. Is the tire completely cracked all over the place? Usually heat and a lot of riding will start to wear the tire. You'll start to see flatting, which just kind of causes, they say, some more resistance. But you want to make sure, number one, that you're just riding a safe tire. There's no shreds or gashes on the sidewalls, nothing on the actual tire that's going to hit the pavement. You want to do that for both front and rear. It's just the safest thing to do. We put so many miles on these and think of all the revolutions that each rim makes. You just want to make sure that what is contacting that pavement is safe for you and obviously safe for the group. That is the point of group riding, is to just be the better rider and make sure that you're also protecting others when you're out on the road. Chain, I know that there are quite a few people who actually don't change their chain, or maybe aren't even aware that a chain does need to be changed. If you've been riding a road bike, trust me, a 10-speed or a mountain bike, and you haven't had your chain inspected, you might want to do that. You want to check it out, take it to a bike shop. They have a tool that can measure your chain, the wear on your chain, and they can let you know whether it's stretched out. Trust me, the tool that measures whether your chain is stretched out or not, you can see that there's a big difference from where the chain started to where it's at after. Just depends how many rides, how many miles. But that's the whole point of having it checked at a bike shop or getting the tool yourself and seeing if your chain is well stretched and just well overdue for a replacement. I've seen it before. I've had buddies who don't change their chain. I've been out on the road with them and their chain snaps. Thankfully, nobody gets hurt, or I haven't seen anybody get hurt yet. But that's the biggest reason why you want to make sure that your equipment is good. It's not overworn, because what you don't want to do is obviously run into a bad situation in a dangerous spot, whether you're in the city, the mountains, or at the beach, wherever you're at. You want to make sure your bike is willing to operate and not put you in danger. Same thing goes for your brake pads. You want to make sure your brakes are good. Whether you check the pads, whether you're running disc brakes or V brakes, you just want to make sure that your brakes are good, they're working, and they're adjusted. It's not something that you have to do all the time. All this bike maintenance is not something that you do, weekly or monthly. It's something that you do throughout the year. Once or twice a year, you have your bike inspected by a mechanic that you trust, that you build a relationship, and that's going to really look at your equipment and say, I think this needs to be replaced. And that mechanic, I believe, should have a reason to say why it needs to be replaced. Listen, that's part of the education of riding a bike. It's part of the expense. And the biggest part of that expense is to make sure that you stay safe, that you stay uninjured, and that your bike works properly. And again, that you also put some investment into protecting others. And guess who wins? You do, because your bike stays intact. I'm going to say that it's very basic, just check your tires, check your chain, check your brakes. Everything else is a visual inspection. Make sure you're carrying the right equipment, whether it's in a little backpack under your seat, or a lot of guys, I used to for many years carry a Ziploc baggie with all the right tools. I think the right tools for the road are a tire lever, a CO2 cartridge, the actual head that goes on the cartridge, a spare tube, some patches, or a boot, or both. I actually carry some patches and a boot. The boot is actually the larger rubber piece that goes over a large gash in your tire. If you're on the road, they say you could use a goo wrapper, or you can use a dollar bill to cover a large hole in the side of your tire. I think those are the essentials. And if you're really, you can go two ways on a multi-tool. You can either use just a multi-tool with all the Allens and the screwdrivers, or you can carry the one that's a little bit bigger and has a chain breaker. I think that's one where you just want to determine whether you really need that chain breaker, or if you just want a tool. It just depends where you're riding and how important it is for you to get back on the road, or if you get a ride, or if you don't do rides that are that long anyways. Just depends on what your concern is if you're broken down on the road. But everybody does say you should be carrying a chain breaker. We'll talk about lube for a second. Lube, you can always just, should always have some chain lube. Goes on your chain. You should be able to clean your chain with a rag just by rolling the chain through the rag. You'll see that the mud and dirt comes off, and you just kind of roll it through till the rag looks clean as you roll through it. Same thing with the rollers, your pulleys on your derailleurs. You should have some type of squeezable lube that goes in the bearings, or you can have something with a straw that'll squirt into the bearings. Not much of this stuff needs to be lubed. Again, if you're taking your bike in once or twice a year, that mechanic is going to lube everything else that you miss. But when you come back to the pulleys here and the chain, that's obviously taking the biggest beating. The most revolutions, doing the most work, so that does get dry. You don't want to be the guy on a group ride that your chain is making this horrible noise. It's clanking, it's grinding, and you can really tell that you're putting some hurt on that chain. So make sure your chain's clean, your pulleys are lubed, your chain's lubed, and your bike should be pretty quiet. Again, you take your bike in a couple times a year, that mechanic's going to get it dialed in for you. This stuff really doesn't come out of adjustment too often. If it ever does, you just do a quick revisit, and that same mechanic will know what happened or what came out of adjustment and why. And they should be able to get you fixed up and back on the road pretty quick. I do want to get to this tire changing flat on this video in one shot. So I'm going to go through this, and I hope you guys enjoy and just take note, because the most important thing about changing a flat is just to be efficient, just to know the steps, to practice if you can, and to know that don't be afraid of a flat, whether you're a woman or a man, a boy or a girl. If you just know how to take the proper steps, you stay patient and you stay committed to changing that flat, you will be able to get it done and get back on the road pretty quick. The biggest recommendation I have when you're on the road and you start to feel something that's off, if you've never had a flat before, you'll know when you're on the road. You'll feel something in front, a little squishy, a little wobbly. You'll feel it in the rear, a little squishy, a little wobbly. If you're lucky, obviously that's the reason you want to inspect your tires, because if you're on a descent going 30, 40 miles an hour, you want to know that you're on good tires. Quite honestly, I've never really seen anybody get a bad blowout on a downhill, but I know it does happen. So again, you make sure your tires are good. These tires are all made so well that that's the reason we ride for years and we really don't see any massive blowouts going down 30, 40 miles an hour. We really don't see it. And that's, I think, most of the guys that we ride with, they do inspect their equipment or they do ride with good equipment. That's why it does matter if you're buying quality tires. It's not always about the discount. It's not always about riding with the cheapest stuff. Again, especially if that's what's actually keeping you on the road. But anyways, so if you're on the road, my biggest recommendation, if you feel that flat, go out, whether it's in the front or the back. There is a rule. They say wherever the flat is, wherever you identify the flat is, you look down, you see your front tire flatting, or you see your rear. They say do not hit the brake where the tire is flat, because as soon as you hit that brake, the tire is actually going to bunch up, because it's now going to stick to the pavement. The rim's going to continue to spin. It's going to come off the rim, and that gets really, really slippery when that rim is on the asphalt. So you're basically going to hit the brake. It's going to rip the tire off. Your rim's going to hit the asphalt. It's going to take you right off the bike. You're going to go down pretty hard, regardless of how fast you're going. So don't hit that brake. You want to use the opposite brake. If your front tire goes out, you just want to depend on the rear brake. Stay calm, stay cool, relax, and then take a look at where you're about to stop at. You want to make sure that you're always safe. Don't panic about the flat. Don't just hit the brakes. You want to think. You want to try to communicate to your group. Flat, flat, raise your hand. Use the brake you're supposed to be using, and then spot your location. Where am I going to pull off into? Is it to the curb? Is it in near that bush? Without worrying really about anything else as to where you're going. You don't panic. You don't do a quick swerve. You just know you got a flat and you start to lightly coast to the next location where you're going to come to a stop. So to me, that's always just part of that vision, is to stay calm and say, where am I going to change this flat? That's the whole point of this tutorials, for you to know what to do. So when you get the flat, you're not worried about what am I going to do now. You're just worried about where am I going to stop and where am I going to get this done. When it comes to changing the rear tube, there is a trick, and I'll show this to you guys. But the first thing you want to do is you want to downshift the chain to the smallest cog in the back. That's going to allow for all the tension to be taken off the cable, and it's going to allow for that rim to just pop right out. I'll show you guys in a minute. When it comes to the front rim, it comes out pretty easy. You just undo the skewer, you unscrew it, and you pop that rim out. Again, what you want to do is just plan of attack, know which rim it is, get off the bike. Don't worry about putting your bike down. All you got to do is gently lie it on the asphalt, gently lie it on a bush. Try not to put the chain in dirt or in grass, because you don't want that chain getting dirty. If you lay it on the opposite side, this is called the drive side, because that has all your drive components. If you put it on the opposite side, you just gently lay it on the pedal. It'll lean up here on the handlebar. It's not going to hurt your bike. So many people, they're afraid to lay their bike down. If you do it gently, nothing's going to happen. Lay your bike down, you grab your rim, and you start to remove the tire. I'm going to go through all this right now. I just want to give you guys a heads up on how to make that approach to finally get the rim off. I'm actually going to go for the rear rim, and we're going to do this. It's already downshifted. I'm going to release the skewer, and it's literally that easy to take that rear rim off. It's super easy. Again, that chain was downshifted into the smallest cog. It's prepared to come off. If you ever try this, gonna be like a magic trick. The rim's just gonna pop off. Obviously my tire is not necessarily flat, it's completely inflated. So I'm going to take the air out real quick. Grab a lever. I am able, it's very easy to change a tire with only one lever if you just kind of know the system. That's what I'm here to show you. So here we go. I'm going to tell you guys a couple things of what I've just learned, what I do. I've been changing flats for years. I've gotten really good at it. I haven't really came into any issues with the tube being changed and having issues after the fact. About 99% accurate on changing that tube, putting the tire back on, and it being incident free. Obviously, one of your biggest concerns in changing a flat is what caused the flat. So what you never want to do is forget to inspect that tire. If you know that you got to inspect it, you can inspect it before you even go for the tube. You can quickly take another inspection, see if you see the glass or the wire or whatever caused the flat. In this case, I don't see it. I know that my tire isn't flat, but sometimes you'll see it, sometimes you won't. There are times when a piece of wire or metal goes in, comes out, and gets left on the pavement. So you won't even see what caused the flat. You'll just know that you have the flat. I'll show you the next way to inspect it once we get the tire off. I've heard this before. I've never read it myself, but I always start taking the tire off at the valve stem, or near it rather, and I put it back on starting with the valve stem. So I always have a starting point and an ending point at the valve stem. Some people disagree with it. I think it works for me. So first thing I want to do is get my lever under the tire. I don't want to grab the tube, I just want to grab tire. You can see it, you can feel it, you'll see that there is direct contact on it. I then want to put my thumb on that tire because I want that tire to stay securely over the lip as I start to drag and take the rest of the tire off the rim. You can see that the tire lip, this is it's called the bead, is coming out from the rim. It's starting to be released, and you just slide your lever all the way around gently. This doesn't take much pressure, doesn't take much effort if you're following the right steps. Take this off. Again, I've ended at the valve stem safely, didn't pinch anything, didn't affect the valve stem. Of course, people think that matters when we put it on, and I'll show you how easy that is as well. Once we have the tire lip, you only need to remove half the tire. This point I want to take the tube out, so I'm actually going to lift and push the tire back. You'll totally expose the tube at that point. You pinch, you pull the valve stem. Don't forget, this is a tube, so it's like a rubber band. So you lightly pull it up, you pull it down, you pull it up one more time, and like magic, the tube comes out. This obviously would be a bad tube, so I'd be ready to chuck it, or I'd be ready to put it in my back pocket. Don't want to leave it on the road. But now that I have the tube out, I want to do another inspection of inside the tube to make sure that there's nothing still in the tire that's going to cause me to flat again once I begin to roll. So I go through. If you can see, I do have my fingers up in there. I want to gently stroke through it. Obviously, if something's major in there, you don't want to cut your fingers up, but don't forget you did already take that external inspection before you stick your fingers in. It's not that dangerous. I've never seen anybody, actually I've never seen anybody really cut themselves, but it is possible because something did cause that tube to flat. But I do stick my fingers in, do the external inspection again, drag it in, see if there's any wires or pieces of glass or anything that caused the flat. If you're lucky, you find it, you see it, you just want to pinch it and take it out. You want to pull it through, you want to do whatever you can to get that piece of debris out. Always could be a good idea to carry a tweezer inside your bag. Trust me, sometimes there are these tiny little shreds of steel that go into your tire and they're difficult to take out. If you're desperate, I've seen people literally bite, put their teeth on the tire to try to get that piece of metal out. Whatever it takes, you just got to make sure that tire is good when you put that tube back. So I drag my fingers through. I've either identified it, I removed it, or I say, you know what, I don't know what caused it. So I think we're good to go because the tire seems good. At that point, you're ready to reinsert the tube. Believe it or not, only a couple minutes have gone by the time you've taken off the rim, stuck the lever in, taken the tire off, removed the tube. Most tubes come just like this. Once you unravel them, they're very weak, no real structure to it. So you have to create structure in order to put this tube back in. I'm going to show you how I do it. I usually just will pop that valve, unscrew it, pop the valve in. Again, this is a Schrader. Actually, I take that back. Excuse me. This is a Presta valve. Presta is a long thread like this. The Schrader is the old school one, like the BMX inflatable valve. So this is a Presta. So what I do is I unscrew that valve and I honestly just blow it up with my mouth. Like a balloon, I'll blow into it and I'll lift this just to give it some help, because all we want is some air. You see how that structure came to the tube? And I will gently tighten the valve. So it has a little bit of structure now. Still a little loose, but once it goes into the tube, it'll kind of hold itself up. Again, I'm gonna start at the valve stem hole. First thing I'm gonna do is just the way we took it out. Lift up and over. I'm gonna stick that valve stem right back into the hole, push it in, and I'm gonna lift that tire over the tube. And we're gonna start, all we wanna do is place that tube, into the rim. We want it to sit in the rim. That's how we start, okay? So that was one time around. The tube, as you can see, has vanished because it's sitting inside the rim. And now we wanna start to put that bead back into the rim. I start with two thumbs at the top near the valve, and I just want to push and get that bead to sit inside the rim. Can you see that? It went in. I want to secure it. I'm securing this while I put more of that bead inside the rim. Secure bead in. If I see the tube popping out, I stick the tube in first. I come back around to put that bead back in. Bead in. Make sure tube's clear. Bead in. Tube's clear. Tube's clear. Bead in. This is really how easy it can be to do it. Again, I'm in the right state of mind. I'm calm. I know what I'm doing. I've studied the video. I've practiced this before. And this is how it's taking place on the road. If you're with buddies, if you're with friends, you can set up the same system. Just know what you need. Ask your buddies, man, can you get me a lever? Can you get me a tube? Can you get my CO2 ready? You can kind of do this as a team. Actually works a little quicker, but you just gotta be organized. Getting this bead back in all the way until you get to the very end. Many times the very end seems to be the most challenging because all the tension is basically put into this last section. It still can be easy if you just know how to approach it. Sometimes it does take a little bit of hand strength, but not as much as you think. If you come at it from both sides, right? I'm coming here to this bead, lifting, pushing, lifting, pushing, lifting, pushing, lifting, pushing, and voila, the bead seated all around the tube. You do want to take one more check and just push it around to make sure that the bead is inside the rim and the tube is not sticking out of the tire. The tube should actually be seated up in the tire completely. Nothing should be sticking out, because what you don't want, you cannot have that tube between the tire and the rim, because as soon as you blow it up, big explosion. Tube inside the tire, you can clearly see it. It's without question that this tube is inside the tire. I'm ready to go to put that air in. Depending on what type of CO2 tool that you use, just make sure you use one that's friendly, one that's easy. If you're using a hand pump, obviously it's just gonna take a little bit of determination to get the air back in, but you're good to go. This takes air back. You want to make sure it's super tight, or that the tire is completely inflated as much as possible. You get that tire pressure back. And now it's time to go back on the rim. I'm actually not going to use the CO2 right now or the pump because it's going to take a little too long. So as far as remounting this, it's the same thing. It's already set. It was set up to be removed, and right now it's set up to go back. It's even easier when it's on the floor because you have gravity helping you. All you really got to do is focus on getting this little cog inside the chain, and then getting your skewer to get directed or guided back back where it belongs, basically. And actually, that's the chain needs to go on the cog. That's the problem I'm having here. Chain on the cog, and then skewer back into place. It's literally that easy. Again, I'm doing this without the gravity part, so it would it falls into place even easier if you are doing this on the street. And there you have it. We're back. We're on the road. We shift back. We get back on the road, and everybody's good to go. You know that your tire does not have any debris. You know that your tube is straight. It's set. You know that you have enough air in it. Literally takes 5 to 10 minutes, even if you're taking your time. The key is to focus. Focus. Got to get this flat changed. If you guys want to stop at the store or chat, that's fine. But if you want to just get right down to it and jump on the flat, focus on it. Have that vision of how it needs to go down. Watch this video again, and it will be extremely helpful next time you get a flat on the road. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please leave comments. Let me know what you think. I hope this has been very helpful to you. It has been to me and to the group I ride with and to anybody else I've ever helped change a flat, because it's always appreciated when somebody just knows what to do when you're out on the road. And that result is getting everybody back to their ride and having a great time. So I hope this video finds you well. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.